an hour and a half, so we can talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
The complex issue of grass cutting in this community is multifaceted and brings a lot of issues. Cutting people's private property has become a burden on this community from a cost perspective, from a time constraint, the demand on resources of this government, and it revolves around people who refuse to cut their own property. And so we have ordinances that dictate how to handle that, and you have to give proper notice, you have to go through a process of doing it. And it takes a long time to get there, sometimes up to 7, 8 weeks before it gets cut. We're working to change some of those ordinances to address those problems in a more timely manner. But the issue of it, the basic issue of itself, of people not cutting their own grass, is something that this community and this government has to address. And we can speak on the range of hundreds of thousands of dollars that typically this community doesn't have or want to spend on cutting private people's property. So with that said, that doesn't relate to your problem. You have a parcel of land. Now, what is your address?
My address is 216 Ena.
Okay. Has this been called in?
It has been called in. Excuse me, I must say it has been called in. She told me it has been called in. I believe her. But I just wanted to know that it's not the problem just you are having. It's all over. And I know it doesn't sound right, but I know you like the grass cut. And I mean, that's just a problem that we are having. That's just a situation that everyone is having. I think all non-council members right now are having a problem with grass not being cut in their district.
Okay. And my question is this: the property that I'm concerned about is the people that live there are all dead. So I want to know who is the city writing to tell them that they're not going to cut the grass, that they're not cutting the grass.
Hence the problem. That is, there are owners of that property. They're registered owners of that property, and that's who it goes to. And so when it's non-responsive, when we get no answer, then we go through the process continues until we can dispatch a crew, a contractor to cut that grass.
Okay, and I understand that, but my problem is I have checked with the registrar's office, the parish registrar's office. The person listed as the next available living lives in Orlando, Florida, and they are a company basically. They paid the tax in 2007. Apparently, nobody's paying the taxes. So I have been calling this problem in for the last 5 years because the grass continues to grow. My question is, don't y'all have a policy in place, or don't you have a computer that tells you that I call every 2 or 3 months for the same issue? There isn't nobody that is owning this property or claiming this property, whatever it may be. And why do I have to wait another 8 weeks? And while it's raining, the grass continues to grow and look, as I say, like I don't live in the state of Louisiana.
And those are some of the changes that we're trying to implement in the process to speed that up, particularly for those types of cases.
And then let me intervene here before we get long-winded and we get sidetracked. There has been a meeting place, and they're looking at amending the ordinances and getting with contractors to help speed that process up. So we are looking into it, and your comments and your requests has been duly noted by Council Clerk Ms. Williams. So we'll make sure we follow up with that, and we'll get Mr. Dubrock and Mr. Lewis to follow back up with you. Okay.
Can I go to any meetings y'all have as far as the ordinance that you're going to institute?
Any ordinance that's amended is going to come in front of the council, and the night that it comes available, we'd love to have you back so you can understand it.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Dubrock.
Bill Linedecker, followed by Susan Jenkins.
Good evening. My name is Bill Linedecker. I just have two things. I'll be short. At the last meeting I attended, the Mayor President introduced his recommendations to serve on the Lafayette Public Innovation Alliance Trust. One of the nominees, the advocate reported, was indicted by a state grand jury in 2014 on 9 perjury counts, stemming from accusations that, as health secretary, he had helped a company he once worked for. Former Attorney General Buddy Caldwell prosecuted the perjury case, and current Attorney General Jeff Landry dismissed the case in 2016. I was uninformed about what an indictment was, but an indictment is a formal accusation against someone who is suspected of committing a serious crime filed after the conclusion of a grand jury investigation. So, has his nomination been approved?
Mr. Lowell, do you know? No. We don't know. He would know. He's not here. We can make sure he gets back to you, though.
All right, thank you very much. The last thing, as the Bernhard proposal unfolds and the redevelopment of the courthouse down in the downtown Lafayette, as it unfolds, I would certainly appreciate, and I think everyone here would appreciate, as much transparency on the process as possible. I appreciate the Mayor President's attempt to, as The Current magazine put it, avoid a public spectacle on his selection of a group to develop the federal building in downtown Lafayette. However, I believe that the citizens of the parish of Lafayette would have appreciated a little more information. Transparency is a good thing. I would think the administration would have appreciated a little more transparency related to the drag queen story time presentation at the public library. It's not about the presentation, it's about transparency. So I'd just like to leave you with one quote. Transparency is for those who carry out public duties and exercise public power. Privacy is for everyone else. Thank you very much.
Next speaker.
Next speaker, Susan Jenkins, followed by Alicia Roberts. And as Ms. Jenkins come up, we've received word that the audio is going in and out on AOC. We've notified AOC, and they are working on it.
Okay. State your
Hi.
name for the record.
My name is Susan Jenkins. Most people know me as Alex, and I am in Bruce's area. Lovely bow tie. Bow ties are cool. Change is hard. I'm here to speak about the drag queen story time. I have been in Lafayette since 1982. I have loved the public library. I decided to stay here and raise my children here, one of whom is with me tonight. He is here. And we were very, very excited when we learned about this activity at the public library. I have taught all of my children, I have 3, to love and accept people the way they are. I have taught them, first and foremost, to always be kind. And it's very, very difficult for children to understand this and put it into practice if they're not put in situations that challenge it. Okay? And I read the comments. I know, you should never read the comments. Darn it.
That's what it gets you.
I know. It's one of the reasons I'm here tonight, and I'm here looking like this because I found out while I was cutting the grass, and I was like, well, here I go, covered in gasoline and dirt from the backyard. But this is important. This is really, really important. Lafayette is a big, beautiful place, and it is full of amazing and friggin' fabulous people, some of whom are here tonight. And I guess that's scary. I guess that's scary for some people to see things change, or to see things that they would prefer, maybe that they, can ignore. If it's over there, they don't have to see it, so they can pretend that it's not happening. But that's not the way we move forward. As you can see, I have no prepared statements, and I'm just kind of rambling. But I brought my son with me tonight because I want him to see how his community feels. And so far, I've been very, very pleased with what he has witnessed. I don't want the council, I don't want our invisible mayor to act out of fear, to react out of fear. okay? It's just that always leads to bad decisions. I think our community is better than that. I think our community is more open than that. I think our community is more loving than that. And for people who find it uncomfortable, just don't go. It's not really that hard. My husband doesn't eat seafood, so we don't go eat, I don't try to serve him boiled crawfish. It's, just don't go if you find it very, very uncomfortable. Nobody is going to force you to. Nobody's going to drag your child there against your will. It's not going to happen. I just thought that it was important that people show up and speak up when they see something that affects our community this way, and that you, as our representatives, need to know how we feel about it. And so I would like to say definitively right now that as long as it's not canceled, I will be there with my child, with my friends and their children for the Drag Queen Story Time, and it's going to be fabulous. Thank you very much.
Hold applause. Next speaker.
Alicia Roberts, followed by Dory Thomasy.
Good evening. My name is Alicia Roberts. Some people may know me as Allie Roberts. I'm from District 6. Mr. Conk is my council rep. First, I'd like to say I always was taught that in an important situation, you should probably take a potty break beforehand. So hopefully Mr. Robideau will show up again later. The origin of the term drag is uncertain. The first recorded use of the term is in reference to actors dressed in women's clothing from 1870. So that's just the first recorded use of the term. 1870 is a long time ago. This is not a new phenomenon, and drag is a theatrical form. As a theater nerd who has been very active in the community theater community here in Lafayette for several years, I am friends with lots of people that do drag, whether they be gay or straight, and that doesn't matter. When they go on stage, they are in that persona. And when they get off stage, they are not in that persona. They are not out to corrupt children or indoctrinate them or any of that. I do want to address a little bit of the hypocrisy in this issue. I am not from here. I have been here in Lafayette 2 times in my life for extended periods, and I have lived here this time since 1998. And I am married to a man who is about as Cajun as they get. He's a Champagne from St. Martinville, so there you go. We live in a community that celebrates a lengthy season of drunken debauchery that is facilitated by this local government. We take kids out of school for it. We use our roads, our civil servants, and our resources for it. I personally am not a fan. That's okay. You know what I do? I just don't go. I feel it promotes irresponsible alcohol use, rape culture, and a general lawlessness during that time. My response, again, to not agreeing with this is I just don't go. I stay at home and continue my normal business, and I'm merely happy for the day off of work. This story time is one program of over 100 other programs offered by the library in that particular circular, and I can guarantee you that there is someone that will be in disagreement with every single one of those programs on some level. The library programming does not fall under the purview of this council, as has been publicly admitted. The library is for everyone, not just for people who don't like drag queens, not just for people who don't like 3D printers, not just for people who don't like Dungeons and Dragons or board games or fairy tales or whatever else they offer that you may not be into. Just as Mr. Robideau wouldn't want a librarian coming into his office and determine they know how to do his job, it is an insult to these extremely educated, highly skilled professionals for him to assume to understand how their job is done. They work daily developing hundreds of programs for the entire year with so many concerns for so many different needs and different people and populations in mind. They also do this with, obviously, very little support from Mr. Robideau, publicly at least. They do not need him nor this council to police them. They know exactly what they are doing. I want to close by saying I'm a Christian. I attend a Methodist church in this community that I'm extremely active in. And there is something that we say in our church called the 80-20 rule, where 20% of the people do 80% of the work. And as you've noticed, there's a big 80% running their mouths on Facebook about how horrible and detrimental to our community this is, but you will notice that 20% that is here do not agree with them. So take heed of who's actually showing up and who will be showing up to the polls when it's time to vote again. Thank you.
Dory Thomasy, followed by Brooklyn Woods.
Brooklyn is no longer here. She had to leave.
Thank you.
Hi. Hello, my name is Dory Thomasy. I am relatively new to Lafayette as a person who lives here. I've been in Lafayette for about a year and a half. I am in District 3, so I live downtown. I decided that since I read so many things on Facebook that were talking about the Bible, to look up in the Bible to see where it says cross-dressers were not supposed to be doing that. And it's not in the New Testament. It's in the Old Testament, but not in the New Testament. And a lot of people who would support the Old Testament would also be the people that said that women are not supposed to wear pants anymore. Western culture allows for that. Christians are called to dress in appropriate ways, and it is clear that Christians are called to show God's love to all. So I guess it's obvious I'm supporting the drag queens reading to children in the library. God himself, Jesus, said for himself, this comes from Ephesians, for himself he is our peace. He has made the two groups on and has destroyed the barrier, dividing the dividing wall of hostility. By setting aside his flesh, the law, with its commands and regulations, his purpose was to create in himself one new humanity out of the two, thus making peace, and in one body to reconcile both of them to God. His entire ministry was to tear down the walls of hostility and bring together those who were once estranged. I definitely think we should have this program. I could just beat the dead horse now and say it again and again and again. I've said it. I appreciate your time in this matter, and thank you.
Vegas Rain Woods.
Vegas also had to leave.
Okay. Connor Quibido, followed by Roxy Black.
I'm going to ask very nicely. Please hold your applause. If it continues, I'm sure Mr. Kyle can figure out who's clapping and we can ask you nicely to leave, okay? I appreciate your comments. I appreciate your, it's good that you're here and you're speaking, and I don't have nothing against that. I commend you for being here, and more people like this need to come to every meeting, okay? But respectfully, like I said at the beginning of the meeting, holding your applause, it's not that I don't agree with you or I disagree with you. It's just so we can move the process and give respect to one another. So I'm asking again, nicely, hold your applause. Thank you very much.
If everyone would like to take a deep breath. There have been so many words shared today, and I can imagine that it gets very straining on the mind for you guys to just listen so much to people, but also that's what you're paid for, so that's fine.
That is true.
Thank you, Mr. Robideau, for joining us now. Hi, my name is Connor Quibido, and I am here to speak on the library drag queen reading issue. And I feel like I need to tell you something. I am 20 years old. I am studying sociology at the University of Louisiana here in Lafayette, and I live here in Lafayette. And I am a queer person. Queer meaning anything but normal. I stand before you wanting nothing more than to really ask you a few questions, mostly rhetorical. You don't have to answer anything. I don't want to know your politics. I don't want to know your address, and I don't really want to know how many hours you work a week or whether or not you like cats. I do like cats, so let that be known. I'm not asking for your religion, and I'm not asking which church you attend. I don't know who you are, and I don't know who you want to be. I don't know who you love or how you want to love them. All I know is that for some reason or another, our own identities have brought us here together in this room. My identity has put me here, and yours has put you there. For one reason or another, society has given us our own set of expectations that we are to meet in order to be accepted. You wear your nice pants and your nice shirts and your nice shoes and your nice watches so that people will accept you and so that they'll hear what you have to say. And I will admit, I'm not dressed in my nicest attire. I did just come from work. But I would hope that you still listen to what I have to say. I work for UL's newspaper, The Vermilion. I am the LGBTQ+ columnist. I go around with this project of mine, interviewing queer people in the area, asking them about their lives, their hobbies, their aspirations, and really anything under the sun. Ultimately, in an attempt to show people the humanity in queerness. To show that, just like you, they are human beings, queer people, are human beings, worthy of love, worthy of respect, and worthy of freedom. In my journey through the queer landscape of Lafayette, I've discovered more love and acceptance from human beings than I ever thought was possible. Growing up in southern Louisiana, right here, and being a queer person, I am very familiar with the rejection and abuse faced by people in the queer community. When I started embracing my identity as a queer person, my parents and their deeply held religious beliefs led them to think that the only possible thing left for them to do was to kick me out of their house. So for 3 months last summer, I was homeless. I was 19 years old, and I had been rejected by the people that were supposed to love me the most, because of their religion primarily. And I thank God every day for the absolutely loving community that took me in. In the last year of my life, I have faced more hardship than ever before, primarily because I am unapologetically queer and I am unapologetically myself. If children can learn that it is okay, or even that it is amazing, to unapologetically be themselves, then I think that that's something worth fighting for. If a drag queen wants to take the time out of their day to read to children and maybe in some way teach them the power of being themselves, then I think that that's worth it. I am here today to ask this city council to show the world that it is okay to be yourself. I'm asking you to show all the other homeless queer youth that the hatred they've experienced from their family and from their society is nothing compared to the love found inside of us all. If this decision means anything to me or any of the other queer people in Lafayette, it means knowing that the place we call home, will accept us and that we no longer have to run from hatred. If this council truly wants this community to be the best it could be, you would allow these queens to serve their community and make a home founded on love and acceptance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Roxy Black, followed by William Thiel.
Hello. My name is Roxy C. Black. I would think that I wouldn't be as nervous as I am right now standing in front of you, being that I do this once a week and stand in front of way more people than this, but I'm very nervous, so please excuse me. I am a drag queen. I am also a transgendered woman. On yesterday, waking up after a very hard weekend of performing and seeing that the library was going to have story time with the drag queen, I was very excited. I've seen it done in other states, and I was just wondering when it would get here. And then this morning, being at work and seeing that it possibly might be canceled, I was very disappointed. I don't understand what the issue is. It's not as bad as everyone thinks it is. I think we need to teach our younger generation about acceptance, tolerance, and inclusiveness. I plead with the board to please let this happen. You know, my motto is, I never let anyone's ignorance become my reality. If that would have been the case, I wouldn't be standing here today as the woman I am. Until we try this event, we will never know if it will work or if it will succeed. And I just really want it to happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
William Thiel, followed by Jared Eubanks.
Hello, my name is William Teely. I live in District 6. Thank you, Councilman Bruce Conk, for your service. And thank you to all of the councilmen and councilwomen for your service. And thank you, Mayor Parish President Joel Robideau, for your service. However, I disagree with you, Mr. Mayor. I disagree with your statements that you made today online that we should cancel or change the venue for the drag queen storytime event. I am disheartened and saddened by the hateful and bigoted comments that I see online about canceling the event. I don't believe that anyone who is different is a freak, is perverted, or degenerate. I believe instead that what makes them different is something that's special and should be celebrated. If Lafayette truly is the happiest city to live in the United States, I am not seeing that online today in these comments and in your comments, Mr. Mayor. I don't understand the fear, the hate, and the intolerance that must live in someone's heart to oppose a philanthropic event trying to teach tolerance. And especially in an age when bullying and suicide are plaguing our schools and the lives of young people. I don't understand how this event fails to serve the needs of the citizens of Lafayette Parish. Ask any student in our K-12 school system who may be a little different from their classmates and therefore gets bullied because of it, if a children's event promoting tolerance would serve our community. I suspect they would say it would. I applaud the Lafayette Parish Public Library System and the Brothers of Delta Lambda Phi for wanting to make Lafayette a more accepting and tolerant city, and to help us further that accolade of being the happiest place in the United States. I ask the City Council to support the Drag Queen Storytime event through your appointments on the library's Board of Control. Drag queens are not second-class citizens. The government should not force them to move their event out of the public sphere to a private venue. There are citizens and taxpayers as much as any of us, and they have every right to use the library. I ask all the city councilmen to think of you, and councilwomen to think of your districts. I want you to think of that child at home crying in their bedroom because they were bullied and harassed at school today. That child that is dreading going to school tomorrow because they know it's going to happen again. I want you to think of that child in distress and despair and how that child's going to react to the mayor's comments and the comments of others online today. And I want you to think of the bullies in the classroom who are going to see the mayor's words and the words of others online and be emboldened to further bully and harass students that are different from them. I ask this council to stand up for tolerance and acceptance. I would ask the mayor, parish president, Joel Robideau, to apologize for his statement and withdraw it. In conclusion, I would like to finish with a quote from Helen Keller. The highest result of education is tolerance.
Jared Eubanks, followed by Rhonda Gleason.
Good evening. My name is Jared Eubanks. I live in District 6. Thank you to our president, Mr. Conk, and all the other councilmen and women here tonight. I'm here obviously to support the drag queen story time at the library. Lafayette's a city I'm proud to have settled in. I love living here. I think it's a great place, and I think it is striving to be better. I was very excited to see this story time event going on, and some of the early support from it in the community that I'm happy to be a part of. I was, however, greatly saddened to see the bigotry and hate that it kind of devolved into over time. I also worry that Mayor Parish President Joel Robideau's comments today emboldened that kind of bigotry and hate. I am so proud of UL's Delta Lambda Phi fraternity for bringing these speakers. Drag is not about sexuality. It's about pride. It's about acceptance. Acceptance, inclusivity, tolerance, these aren't limited resources. Having this taught to our children as values, they grow and enrich our whole community and spread that in all aspects. Today's kids face more bullying and scrutiny than ever before. We have social media that essentially puts them on the spotlight all the time. And this continues to disproportionately affect LGBTQ youth. Studies show that LGBTQ youth attempt suicide at rates 2 to 3 times that of their peers. It's pretty widely attributed to bullying and not being accepted. And growing up as a gay man, I wish I had role models like this to see, these drag queens that are presenting the story time. It's hard growing up with that kind of shame and bullying and insecurity. And these are people taking time out of their day to show these kids that it does get better, that they get to accept who they are, that they get to live the life they want to. And we're going to shut that down. It just sends all the wrong messages, and I'm really, really disheartened that that's a possibility. Furthermore, I really appreciate that the library is not a place where we ban books because we don't necessarily agree with the idea represented in them. Likewise, I don't think we should be banning events because we don't all agree with the events that the ideas that they represent. That's really all I wanted to say tonight. I appreciate having the library as a source of intellectual dialogue and exchange, and I hope that we don't turn our backs on that. Thank you guys, and good night.
Rhonda Gleason, followed by Rebecca Bowers.
Good evening, I'm Rhonda Gleason. Glad to be here, I appreciate your time. I'm just here to say that I want to show my support for the event that's planned at the library. I believe in my heart of hearts that our public places, our libraries, our parks, our schools should be places of inclusivity. I am a teacher, I'm a mother, and I'm an intersectional advocate. So whether we're talking about Jim Crow statues in our public spaces, whether we're talking about suppressing the right of folks to come and tell a story to kids and open folks' minds, these are issues that really hit me personally. And I did make a Facebook post today about this, and people said, go down and speak. And I'm not a stranger to this area. Mayor Robideau, I was right there supporting you, along with a lot of other progressive folks, when our hospitals were threatened, when our TOPS was threatened. We rely on you to step up, and we appreciate when you do, when you step up for our community. I love Lafayette. I love that we can talk about redfish encrusted with cracklin, and then sit in this space and then talk about some more issues of depth. I don't like some of the comments that some of our citizens, one gentleman in particular came up, he has an issue about our statue, our Mouton statue. I don't agree with him, but I appreciate that he can come up here and say what he feels. I appreciate that 37 of us can speak freely with you guys. My son is 21 years old, born in Lafayette, raised in Lafayette. He's in the Air Force. Every man in my family line, my grandfather, my dad, my brother, my son now, every one of them served as airmen and defended our country and defended our rights to come up here and speak, to have folks come to our library and read to our kids. The Drag Queen Story Hour is not about sexuality. It's not about how people have sex. It's about identity, it's about inclusion, and it's about community. And I do not believe that we are so myopic in Lafayette that we can't understand that. So I'm not going to accuse you, Mayor. Sometimes we have to step away from the desk, but I do implore you to appreciate, and I don't even like the word what is the word that we use when we say that we want to understand people of a different ilk? I think that's condescending. I think we need to appreciate them. And this is a chance for Lafayette to shine at our best once again. So there's a challenge for you, and I hope that you take it and run with it and do good work for us. I appreciate you all.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Dr. Young Sing Woo, followed by Amy Robinson.
So, hello, I have a tiny piece of paper. I'll go really short. Mayor President and City Parish Council, thank you for hosting this tonight. I'm super impressed with all the thoughtful commentary about the drag queen story time, which is what I want to speak about and in support of.
Can you state your name for the record?
Yes, Young Sing Woo. I'm a citizen of Lafayette Parish. I'm a transplant. I've lived here now for almost 20 years. I married a Cajun boy. My daughter identifies as Cajun, although she's going through a K-pop moment. So, as a child of a librarian, as a sister of a child's librarian, I've supported libraries wholly and completely for most of my life. I'm a professor of English at UL as well, so it wouldn't surprise you to know that I support reading and books of all kinds. I'm not a snob. I think reading, however it happens, whenever it happens, is a good and fascinating thing and worth valuing. The library is a public institution, is a public servant, and so what impresses me most about this drag queen story time is the generosity of spirit that the event imagines. And by generosity of spirit, I mean that I think the library knew what risks it was taking. It knew it caused controversy, and yet it mattered just as much to imagine inclusivity. A lot of folks have spoken about that, so I don't need to go over that territory. But what I do want to emphasize is the courage that it took for these young men to imagine going to a public space, reading to young kids who are going to have a gajillion questions, and they're going to be tough ones because they're going to be honest ones, and some of them might be hurtful ones. And so these young men know this, and that's what I want to applaud. I have a graduate student who today told me that one of the young men who belongs to this fraternity approached him, and this young man is a freshman because my graduate student teaches freshman students, and apparently he's been crying because he's been reading the Facebook posts. And he never imagined, he said, that this gesture that he was excited about would result in what he had been seeing. So I want to emphasize the courage of these young men in wanting to serve their community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Amy Robinson, followed by Tracy, and I don't know if it's Fabre.
Good evening, Council, Mayor President, Ms. Toops, who does all the hard work. I'm Amy Robinson, resident of the city of Lafayette, District 8. I wasn't actually planning on speaking this evening because it's busy season part 2 at work, but our community, as I often preach, is the most important thing and it has to come first, so here I am. And as a side note, I'm not speaking to this tonight, but I want to mention that I support my fellow members of Move the Mindset in removing the monument from downtown. It was extremely disappointing to see all of the terrible comments on social media regarding drag queen story time at the library, but quite typical of the loudest, but by no means the majority of our citizens, who often feel the need to belittle, criticize, and shun anything that doesn't fit their belief system or narrative. The Declaration of Independence holds these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What the critics of this don't understand or fail to recognize is that by canceling or by holding the story time, no one's rights are violated. If you don't want your child exposed to differences, tolerance, and all of the diversity of not just this community, but of the world, it's quite simple. Don't attend. Stay home and write hate-filled comments on your social media of choice and burden your children with the hate and intolerance that you harbor. However, if this canceled If this is canceled, rights are violated. And at that point, myself and a large group of supporters will ensure that those responsible are held accountable. Accountable being one of my favorite words. More disappointing than the folks that I expected this from was the statement issued from our mayor-president, who in the same post touted non-discriminatory rules of the library at the same time he threatened to cancel an event designed to prevent discrimination. According to the LAA's rules on meeting spaces, the spaces should conform to the library's Bill of Rights. The library has a Bill of Rights. Article 1 states that the materials should not be excluded because of the origin, background, or views of those contributing. Article 4 maintains that the meeting facilities and exhibit space should be made available to members of the community on an equitable basis, regardless of the beliefs or affiliations of individuals or groups requesting their use. I take that to mean that even Michael Lunsford, who doesn't live in Lafayette Parish but comes to our council meetings and takes up space and speaks on issues he doesn't pay property taxes on, could come and hold a story time similar to the fiction that he tells online already. It's very simple. If what the library that day doesn't interest you, don't attend. However, I encourage everyone to do something outside of their comfort zone instead. I'll do it if you will. Fear is at the heart of hate always. We fear what we do not know. So learn something new. Meet someone that you normally would not meet. You might be surprised, and you might be missing out on someone that you may never meet. My friend Kurt Piccioni spoke of empathy earlier, and Lafayette in general could use a lot more empathy when it comes to people who are different from them. We heard a lot of real problems tonight: drainage, mowing, corrupt nominees. Drag queen story time is hardly worthy of the time that the mayor-president spent writing his statement and the late night that you will all now be here because of that. Let's focus on some of our real issues: taking care of our community and our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Tracy Fobb, followed by Shane Wicker.
Hello, my name is Tracy Fobb. I live in District 8. And I'm here to state my support for our library and its programming, particularly the Drag Queen Storytime. And I want to thank the council for having the courage to consider all these differing points of view regarding the issue, which has proven to be extremely controversial in our community. As a supporter of the program, I think it's important to acknowledge that controversy alone should not be the deciding factor here. We look to our government to make rational decisions, not steeped in emotion, but in fairness. Even if 99% of people have one view, that should not lessen the remaining 1%'s viewpoint. This program is one of many storytime programs which I and my children regularly attend. In fact, we were really looking forward to it. I wrote it in my calendar the minute I saw it, as I often do when I see a program that I'm interested in. If I wasn't interested, I wouldn't attend. That is my right and the right of every other person and parent in the area. My advice to those opposed to it is to share their voice by not attending. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Shane Wicker, followed by Dr. Keith Dorwick.
Evening. I'm not really sure which side I stand, so we'll just go with this one. My name is Shane Wicker. I'm the current owner of Sword and Board down on Johnson. Some of you have seen me in the news over the transition. I'm here mostly tonight because in November and December, we're going to be doing D&D with the public library. Now, 10, 15, 20 years ago, there was movies with Tom Hanks and everybody else about how D&D was pretty much the gateway to hell and everything else demonic that it could possibly be. 20 years later, we're now in the libraries helping kids learn critical thinking, reading, tactical skills, mathematics, how to work with each other, cooperation, and leadership, all from a game. Now, things that you would learn from a reading course or a drag queen-esque theme would be that inclusion is a powerful thing, honesty is a powerful thing, being yourself is a more powerful thing, and being a part of a community gets you where you need to go in life. I'm not from here. I have no idea how I got here, actually. I'm from the West Coast, and I'm here tonight with essentially my stepson, teaching him not only government, but also what you can do as being part of a community. Now, earlier today, I did read that the library has no plans on canceling, but as I've already called the library this morning and informed everybody, if that does go down, my store will host it. We will make it a bigger event, and we'll make it a monthly event. Because at no point in time should anybody be belittled or treated that way because somebody else says no. These people do not murder, they do not maim, they do not do a bunch of other things that you see in the news constantly. They're simply out there to make sure somebody doesn't kill themselves when they're 22, when they're 12, when they're 15, so that they know that there are other people out there that will support them. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Dr. Michael Walden, followed by Nicholas Chormine.
Yes, that was Shane Wicker.
Oh, Dr. Keith Dorwick.
Oh, Keith.
And he will be followed by Dr. Michael Walden.
All right, my name is Dr. Keith Dorwick. I'm professor of English at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. And I do know how I ended up here. I got hired by them back in 2000. I'm very happy to be here, as a matter of fact. I am also a member of St. Barnabas Episcopal Church here in Lafayette. And bear with me, but I won't read it into the record. I'm sure you'll all be grateful to know. A letter with 27 signatures that were gathered since 3:30 p.m. And it is an open letter in support of the Drag Queen Story Time. I'd like to talk about this from my two perspectives. First off, as a member of St. Barnabas Episcopal Church, the letter includes signatures, including that of Father Michael J. Bordelon, our priest in charge, who's newly arrived, and he is actually been very wonderful for us. Also, Atiana Wright, and myself. The other signatories are all from UL Lafayette, and they are from a number of departments, in fact, from a number of colleges. They are ranks from graduate student all the way up to full professor. And so let me start with my life as a Christian and St. Barnabas. So I believe in a Christ that is open to all. If you read the Gospels, and particularly my favorite Gospel, that of Luke, there is story after story after story after story of the marginalized person who has been abandoned by their society and Christ's immediate outreach to them. Women who were ritually unclean because they were bleeding, one for 7 years who spent all she had been beggared by this and estranged from her community. Tax collectors, the equivalent to traitors, because they were collecting taxes for the Roman occupation. The people who were just not supposed to be part of society. The story of the Good Samaritan. The important thing isn't that the Good Samaritan was good. The important thing about the Good Samaritan was that he was a Samaritan, a kind of half-breed Jew, a kind of not quite there Jew, somebody who had split off from the tribe of Abraham, as they would have thought about it, and almost been a renegade, an outsider. And that's the guy who was put up as the model for that what would become Christianity, then Judaism. That's the guy who's put up as the model, not the member of the religious community who walked on going, not me. Not the member of the religious community, the second one, who said, not me. I don't see that beggar there, and the road has been all beat up. I could go on. So the Christian church that I love is a welcoming community to all, including to myself as an openly gay man and as a transgender person. I consider myself gender fluid, not male or female, and not with a strict bifurcation between those two, but all the time. I'd also like to speak as a member of the faculty of the University of Louisiana in my own right, not on behalf of my university. This fraternity is doing great stuff. And I love the diversity that lets UL Lafayette students to get out there and be of service. And so the fact that the library is in turn taking this opportunity that came out from the community to do what libraries do, as my colleague Young Sing Woo mentioned, to get out there, and as many other speakers have mentioned tonight, to get out there and open up the community's viewpoints on a wide variety of matters, some of which I absolutely know I would personally disagree with. That's the sort of thing that libraries need to do. I am very proud of our students for doing this, and I am very proud to be a member of a church that also supports this. And frankly, let's face it, there have been sexual minorities for millennia. It's time to get over it. We're just different people, but we're still people. And that's all that really counts. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Dr. Michael Walden, and he will be followed by Nicholas Chorman, and that's of our 12 remaining speakers.
Councilman Terrio.
Before you start, Mr. Walden, I just have a quick question to the audience, just by a show of hands, real quick, guys. Who is here affiliated with the fraternity RUL? By a show of hands. Okay. Thank you, guys. That's all I wanted to see. Mr. Walden, it's all yours.
Well, good evening. My name is Dr. Michael Walden. I'm a retired engineer and hydrologist. I live in District 3. Tonight, the thing I want to speak to you about is a more concrete problem. Yesterday, while I was sitting in my kitchen, just happily having a little snack, my wife came fuming in and told me, "You can't believe what I just saw in Girard Park." She had spoken to some of the workmen that are there working on the new project. I learned today that the project is called the Girard Park Drainage / Walking Track Emergency Repairs. What she found out by talking to one of the workmen there is that a significant concrete apron is going to be put along the walking track all along the Girard Park Circle Drive inside the walking track to stop the erosion that's been happening. This is going to be about a 7-foot long bit of concrete that goes down into the ditch that you probably know about. They're just across the street from Fletcher Hall. It's going to be long. It's going to go along most of that stretch of that ditch, and we both think it's going to be incredibly unattractive to have a huge concrete slab there running along. It also seems to me that it's going to be hazardous. As I walk along that trail, very often I have to step off as faster people go by, and stepping off onto a concrete slab that's going to have a slope of, I think, around 70% is very likely to send you tumbling down the hill. So I urge and I ask that this project be reconsidered. There is, I think, room to come and have a second opinion about this. The first possibility is to basically take no action. Just fill in the areas that have eroded. The areas eroded because we had those huge storms. And, you know, I've heard some people say that it was a 1 in 30-year storm that we had in 2016. Others say it's a 1 in 1,000-year storm. I don't think we need to be going out spending $128,000 concrete lining this for that next 1,000-year storm. I think it's just going to look so unattractive, and it's probably cheaper to just go and put some more dirt in anytime it erodes in the future when we have these massive storms. So I'm not being critical of the city's engineers. I think we have some really competent engineers working for the city parish. They probably designed what they were asked to design. I just ask that you rethink this and also allow additional professional and citizen input on this project. Up to this point, I don't believe there's been any citizen input on the project. And when you do something that's going to change a park that's been a treasure in this community since at least back to the 1930s, I hope that you'll reconsider. I hope that you will stop this project at the point of replacing the dirt and correcting the earth and slope, and not put that concrete in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker.
Nicholas Charming, followed by Sarah Featherston.
First off, yes, that is actually my real last name. My name is Nicholas Charming. I live in Mr. Castile's district. First, I would just like to say that I am not a very good public speaker. And I get really nervous really easily, so I'm going to look at my paper a lot. I am in support of the Drag Queen Story Time, and I would like to open that by saying I've lived in Lafayette my entire life, all 27 years of it, and I lived at the little house next to the Blue Moon Inn, right downtown from the main public library. I would do exactly like Matilda when I was little. I would get the little red wagon thing, and I would walk all the way to the library by myself. Probably not good, but still. And I would get books, and I would sit there all day, and I would read them. And whenever I was a child, because of the library, when I was in 3rd grade, I was told that I had a high school reading level. And shortly after that, I was told that I had a college reading level. They had to go to the college, and they had to get me books from the college because I got bored really easily reading the Harry Potter books over and over again. Whenever I was 14 years old, I moved with my dad to Montana for about 6 months. And in that 6 months, I was sort of painted an odd picture of Louisiana from an outsider's perspective. Living in downtown and reading all the books at the library and being among Mardi Gras and all these amazing things that we have in Louisiana, I thought we were super diverse and amazing and progressive. And I was like, yeah, like Louisiana's the place to be. We got the good food, we got the parties, we got literally everything. We are awesome. In Montana, apparently Louisiana does not look like that. In Montana, the very first thing out of a student's mouth whenever I told them I was from Louisiana was, I heard y'all still do public hangings there. I heard that you don't like people that look like you. That's actually not accurate. At least that's not how I was taught. That's not what I was brought up to raised and be thinking. It's very concerning to me that now that I'm an adult and that sort of childish wonder is wiped away, that I see that there are ridiculously terrible problems and that we are basically trying to turn an eye and don't want to address them because diversity apparently bothers us. I wrote something down because I'm really bad, like I said, at public speaking. As Louisiana shares such a rich culture with France, I would like to share a brief historical light on a great French royal, Philippe d'Orléans, who, among others, was a very well-known drag queen. He was the brother of King Louis XIV, for which our state is named, and he was beloved by his brother. He had children. He often read to them. I don't think that down at the library we would have such an issue with such a wonderful thing that is going to take place. Louisiana is such a beautiful and diverse state. We are the cultural melting pot. Whenever I think of diversity in the state, or the United States of Louisiana, or the United States, I think Louisiana. We are that way because of the many people that make our culture so vibrant and so beautiful. We share diversity when we shun diversity under the guise of protection, we effectively ruin ourselves for the future. Many people visit the library. It is a resource for all. If we do not allow diversity because it does not match with what our supposed morals are, and the supposed morals of a few, then we are censoring life in favor of discrimination. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Sarah Featherston, and she will be followed by Teresa Stretti.
Hello, you all, and I wanted to thank you again for listening to all of us this evening. My name is Sarah Featherston, and I am a citizen of District 3. I am here in support of the library's Read with the Queens, Read with the Queens program. I just want to say that Lafayette, or Louisiana as a whole, oftentimes comes to public view. We were in national news whenever we had the Cajun Navy that came together and saved all these people. We are a place of love, and we have citizens here that love really, really hard, and we're all about helping our brother in a time of need. And that makes me really happy, and I'm so excited to be from this place. But I also don't want us to be seen in the public eye on a national platform as that place that's refusing to let drag queens read and perpetuating the stereotype that the South doesn't know how to accept people from different mindsets. We also came together in the Orlando shooting. We were in Park Sans Souci together, mourning those who were taken and whose lives were ended too soon. So I just want to remind everyone that we are a place, and we do love our brothers, and we go out of our way to help our neighbor. And so what if our neighbor wants to read to our kid? I mean, these are people who walk among us and whose ideas and sense of self can be something that we can all learn from. I wish that I could be unapologetically myself all the time. And I think this is something that our kids need to see, because for a long time I struggled with the fact that I am a gay woman because I don't look gay enough, and I don't participate in my community often enough. And so I wanted to come down here and I wanted to speak and say, like, I am in full support of Reading with the Queens, even though I don't have a kid to bring to the silly library to have him read to. But I mean, I'll go and sit up there. I like when people read me books. And so I just want for us all to maybe be considerate of others' views. And while I appreciate all of you being here tonight, I'm really sorry that you're probably missing dinner. Thank y'all.
Got my coffee, I'm good.
Teresa Stretti and Stefan Trienkins. I'm being tested on the names tonight.
I'm glad that you're having to call it out.
Hey, actually, my name is Teresa Streety, Street with a Y. It's real easy, but it just kind of throws people.
That's Cajun, right?
Well, my grandmother was a Vincent, but I married a man from West Texas. So Streety's from West Texas.
Nice to see you. Thank you for coming.
And thank you. I grew up in a small town, DeQuincy. The library was where I went to get away. I could pick up a book and I could go anywhere in the world. It wasn't exactly the greatest place to grow up. I've never spoke up here and I am shaking like crazy. But I was deeply disturbed about the drag queens being canceled. I'm a 58-year-old white woman, straight, and I feel that it is up to me to defend this because it's just wrong. These are people that want to come and read to kids. Some of y'all play music. That's not who you are every day. One of the best ways for children to learn to read and to expand their whole life is reading, is us reading to them. My mother was a teacher. She read to us. My 3 children, I read to the whole time. When I saw this, I was like, this is great. You know, this is, it's to take time out to read to children that are not yours. And, you know, for children to learn that it's okay to be a little different. It's okay to express yourself. I had a friend of one of my children that came out to me before she came out to her parents because she was afraid of being kicked out of her house. So I told her, I said, I have an extra room. The only deal is you have to do dishes because I don't like to do dishes. But to be 16, 17 years old and be afraid of being thrown out of your house because of this is just, to me, horrible. And perhaps, and like Amy said, if you don't want your children to see this, just don't bring them. But I think this is a wonderful idea, and I hope that it is reconsidered, because the people that are doing this are paying taxes. They're paying for the library just like I am, just like y'all are. And they should have the same rights as I do. And I hope that this today, that y'all can just, you know, everyone can sit back and think, you know, we were the Vincents. Pierre Vincent was my ancestor. They were thrown out of Acadia, you know, Nova Scotia, and they came here. I didn't realize they had been in exile for 33 years. But they weren't wanted because they were French. This is kind of the same thing, that the more that we're exposed, the more that we learn, the more that we realize maybe a lot of the hate and the ugliness that I see on KATC report. Yeah, it's awful, but maybe if we start with something this simple, you know. Okay, that's it.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Stefan Triakins. I apologize if I pronounced it incorrectly. Is Andrew Duyon still here?
Sorry, my name is impossible to pronounce. My name is Stefan Triakins, and I'm a proud citizen of Lafayette. I came here to speak about the library issue like many others did, but I must begin by disagreeing with the gentleman who was dissenting on the Girard Park drainage program. With the ever-accelerating effects of global climate change, we can never predict, is this a 30-year storm? Is this a 1,000-year storm? This will happen again. But what I do know is that this is an ever-expanding city, and let us not make the same mistake that Houston made and not account for all of that space, all of that green space that can no longer absorb water. There must be measures to compensate for that. Now on to the issue I've come here to speak about, the library issue. I believe the library is one of the most valuable assets that any community can have. I believe that it's a place of learning. It's a place to be exposed to new ideas, to meet people who might not agree with you. And moreover, it's a place that it's just plain great to bring your kids to. Now, like my friend who spoke earlier, Mr. Wicker, I'm not originally from here. I'm from the other part of the country, though, northeast. And some of my earliest memories, happiest earliest memories, involve summer vacations. It was a family tradition of ours to go visit Provincetown, Massachusetts. Anybody in the LGBT community here who's heard of that sound will recognize it. It has an extremely robust LGBTQ presence. And as a child, of course, I was confused and perplexed and asked questions, but I learned a lot of things. Speak about externalities. There are many, many, many positive externalities about this. We're not talking about something that's going to happen tomorrow or next year. 10 years from now, though, if we're even preventing one hateful beating of a kid who's acting different, talking a little different, thinks a little different, if we're preventing one kid from being bullied, then this program will all have been worth it. All of this controversy, all of these people coming out to show their support will have all been worth it. And will have all been worth your time patiently listening to all of us speak about it, too. As a graduate of Tulane University's neuroscience program, I'm also well aware of the dramatic effect that our early experiences have on formations of our brains, the formations of our thoughts. That gut feeling you get, when you just feel something, that was imprinted in you early on in your life, whether you know it or not. And I believe that exposing children to people who might just appear wacky to them is a good thing, because it teaches them from that early, fundamental, critical stage that never happens again in their lives. That difference is possible. Difference can breed strong people. Difference can be a very good thing. That's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
Andrew Duyal, and I think he might have left. Lane St. Julian. And then the next speaker would be Andrew Hebert.
Good evening. My name is Lainey Darby St. Julian. I live in District 4. I want to say that I am 67 years old, and I'm a grandmother of 6. And the reason I want to emphasize that is because I want the young people who have been brave enough to appear here tonight to know that they have allies in places that they may not expect, that the grandmothers indeed might be on their side. I've come to talk about, to speak in favor of preserving the autonomy of our public library. I learned today, like others, that due to pressure from some constituents, Mayor President Robideau may pressure the governing board of the library to cancel or relocate the presentation of Drag Queen Storytime, possibly placing it in a spot away from the library. In my opinion, this is exactly the wrong thing to do. The entire point of this event, allowing people who to appear before children, people who see themselves, present themselves in a different manner, is to signal to them that this community will support and nurture all of its members, and not only the mainstream. Many children need to receive this message. Growing up and developing authentic identity is really hard work, and children wondering how they can fit in too often decide that they can't, and that's to their detriment and the detriment of their community. I feel I have a particular understanding of a library's appropriate role in the community it serves through my degree as a teacher of civics for high school students. Prominent in our textbooks and our printed materials was a discussion of the significance of libraries and universities as guardians of open exchange of ideas and information. Of course, First Amendment rights were a big part of this lesson. I was and am a true believer in the ideals of democracy, and most importantly today, I believe these ideals die if they are not lived. Society changes. It moves forward no matter if we want it to or not, whether we like its direction or not. We can't possibly prevent change, so our task is to make it work well for as many people as we possibly can. Respect for differences among humans is an important aspect of this process. I'm aware many in Lafayette, aware after today particularly, that many in Lafayette lack this basic respect for others. Those opposed to drag queen story time can apply pressure on the library to cancel the event or to isolate it. If they are successful, the children seeking their place among Lafayette's citizenry will be the ones that we let down the most. I'm asking the council to please stand in favor of allowing our public library to fulfill its role as guardian of ideas. Please don't interfere in its programming decisions. And please stand for love, compassion, and nurturance, and the free exchange of ideas in Lafayette. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Andrew Abear, who signed in both as a city and a parish resident, and Dale Huffpower.
Good evening. The words of marginalized, inclusive, tolerance of difference and acceptance. I signed in as a registered city voter and a registered parish voter.